Hello. So in this video, I want to talk about the first way in which we parent differently, and that's parenting after infertility. So for 10 years of our marriage, we did not have kids, and for the last 5 years of that, we were actively trying to um, adopt, and then finally turning to fertility treatments, which I can go into details about that in another video. But basically, the fact that we were childless for 10 years really affects how we parent, because during that time we had to consciously make a decision. Do we want to have children, and what are we willing to do? What are we willing to sacrifice? What are we willing to endure in order to make that happen? We were not going to be in a position where we just kind of found out that I was pregnant and everything is great, and then you just kind of, life goes on. No, it was a conscious decision. We were in a position where it wasn't going to just magically happen. We had to actively pursue parenting. So we had to think about, do we really want to have children, or are we just kind of open to it? If it happens, great. If not, whatever. And then once, the decision was made that yes, we really do want to have children, we want to be parents, one of the things, especially when it became difficult, was to consider, well, what would be our life's purpose if we didn't end up having children? And for most of those 5 years that we were pursuing parenthood, I didn't entertain that thought. I just thought, I set my mind to, I want to have kids, we're going to do whatever it takes, and we just kept trying one thing after another after another. But towards the end, and I was quite religious at that point, I started to really think, maybe there's something that I'm not considering. Maybe we're not meant to have children. And then I was faced with the idea of looking at my future, our future, as non-parents, as just not having children, not because we're newlyweds, not because we're busy professionals, but because it just wasn't in the cards for us. So having to face that possibility made it so much sweeter when we did have our daughter. Another way that we parent, or at least me, let me speak for myself, I parent differently, and is that I try not to share my joy over my daughter with everybody in their face, whether they want to or not. Let me see if I can explain that better. Like for instance, on Facebook, some people post daily photos, videos, anecdotes of their kids, and if you happen to be a childless, infertile person and you're Facebook friends with this person, every time you go on there, you have to be reminded of how enjoyable it can be to be a parent and how you don't get to experience that. I'm very painfully aware of that, so I try not to do that. I very rarely put pictures or videos up of my daughter on Facebook. There are some friends that I have on there that don't have children, but would like them, or would have liked them, and so I do try to be, conscious about that. Another way that I try to sympathize with others is by trying not to complain, and I say that because it's true. I don't want to complain, and yet it's really hard sometimes not to, just because it is hard. I mean, I didn't want to have kids because I thought it would be a piece of cake, because I thought it would be easier than not having kids, okay? So it doesn't change whether or not we were infertile before. It doesn't change the fact that it is difficult to have, to raise children. But it's always in the back of my mind when I realize, okay, I've been, complaining about this a lot, and there are plenty of people who would give their left arm for having this problem, or for having sleepless nights, or for having to deal with these tantrums, or this mess, or this noise, or whatever it is that I feel like complaining about. And I think that that's good that I have that to keep my complaining in check, at least limit it a little bit. However, reality check, that doesn't mean I'm a saint, and I don't complain because I have the the benefit of knowing what it's like to not have these problems. No, it's still hard, and I still wish I had a lot more support than I do. And but like I said, it could be a lot worse. I know plenty of parents who that's all they do is complain. And frankly, the worst thing you can do as a parent, from my perspective, coming from infertility, is to jokingly offer to have someone else take your child. Oh, anybody want to adopt my kid? Not funny. Not funny, because that is a real life situation. Some parents authentically do have to place their children in an adoptive home. There's nothing funny about that. And a lot of times people would say that to me, and I would say, before we had our daughter, I would say, actually, yes. If you're serious, I have a lawyer on speed dial. Let's do this. I would love to adopt your child. Why are you joking about that? Count your blessings, So I would never, ever make that kind of comment. That's just ungrateful, And I think if you just happen to become parents because you never had to think about it, then you're at a higher risk for that. I'm not saying everybody does that, but a lot of people that I know have done that. And then another thing, something that's really pressing on my mind lately, as far as how do we parent differently because of our infertility, is looking to the future. We have a daughter right now. She's a toddler, and she was born to us thanks to infertility treatment. So part of that treatment, and I don't want to go into too many details about that, but part of that treatment means that there were extra, or so-called extra embryos that were created, and when it came time for us to attempt pregnancy, we didn't want to go crazy and throw caution to the wind and transfer all the embryos and then worry about, oh, what if all of them stick around? I'm sorry, but Octomama, big no-no. Okay, that is not good for the woman's body, and that is not good for the psyche of new parents to have that many newborns to raise at once. It's hard enough having one, especially when you don't have proper support. So it was difficult that on the one hand, yes, we did want to have children. On the other hand, we had to risk not having any rather than on purpose trying to increase our chances of having multiples. So, and I can maybe explain that better in another video when I talk about infertility specifically. But point being, we have 2 more frozen embryos that are awaiting transfer, which means that we have to attempt another pregnancy with them. If and I say we have to because that is our conviction. Technically, legally speaking, we don't have to. Okay, they could just they could be donated to science, to another family. They could be destroyed. I don't think that's right. I'm not going to go into details about my views on when life begins versus when personhood begins. I do think those are actually 2 separate concepts. But going through everything we went through to finally get to that stage and to be like, okay, we have 2 embryos that, who knows, may grow into 2 more newborns, and to just throw that away, it just doesn't sit well with me. So I do want to transfer them at some point. When is the big question, because I am just kind of now coming out of the fog of parenting a newborn. The first year was quite hard. The second year is much easier, but still very, very taxing. I cannot imagine adding a newborn into the mix just yet. On the other hand, I don't want too big of an age gap. If we do end up being successful again and having another child, don't necessarily want too big of an age gap, because my younger siblings are 10 and 11 years younger than me, and we didn't grow up, me and them didn't grow up as close as the 2 of them did. They were just a year apart. So I'm having to balance that. And you may think, okay, well, how is that different from anybody else trying to space their children? Well, no, because we can't leave it up to fate. We can't just be like, well, this is what I would like, but if I get pregnant, I get pregnant. Well, that's just not going to happen. Again, it's going to be a conscious effort on purpose. Specifically, this is when we're going to do it, and if it works, this is when the baby's going to be born. This is the time, this is the circumstances. And if it doesn't work, then we have an only child. And that's another thing. I would be fine with having an only child, but I don't know that that's what's, right now I have an only child, but I don't know in the long term if that's what's going to happen. And that's something else that, because of our infertility, I don't feel like it's going to be resolved until we are able to transfer the last 2 embryos and know the result. Is it going to result in another baby or not? And then I can put it to rest. So that's just some of the ways that our having gone through infertility affect our parenting. And in my next video, I'll talk about the other 8 ways that we parent differently. Thanks for watching.